I just got to the point where I would clench my teeth because I was in so much physical pain, and like everything was so hard, and I would just imagine Christ on the cross and be like, you went through that, and you went through hell, and like you loved me, and all that's going to get me through is believing that's true.
Yeah.
That's I just like really had that picture in my mind and just cling to that.
Welcome back to Singing Through Fire. I'm your host, Lara Silverman, and today we're continuing our Faith in the Furnace series, where we interview Christian warriors with powerful testimonies of God's grace in modern day lions' dens. I'm so excited to introduce you today to Lauren Watt. Lauren is a young adult Christian writer and virtual assistant. And at age 14, a sudden and mysterious illness altered the course of her life, leaving her bedridden and severely disabled for 8 years. Today, more than 10 years later, her health has largely been restored, but the work of healing continues as she navigates adulthood while processing the trauma of those formative years. She maintains a blog on Substack and is excited about how God is redeeming her years of suffering by equipping her uniquely to help other Christian ministries. Lauren's perseverance through great suffering is such an inspiration to me. So, without further ado, let's sing through this fire. This is Singing Through Fire, where we worship when it hurts, discuss hot takes from the furnace of affliction, and explore a biblical theology of suffering with a side of sass and sarcasm. From lamentations to laughter, this podcast is for anyone desperate for hope, who's ever asked, "Why, Lord, why? I've lost my health, career, and husband, so we're in this fight for faith together." Lauren, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you on.
Thank you so much, Laura. It's a real honor to be here and excited about your podcast.
So, Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us your furnace story in a nutshell?
Sure. So my name is Lauren Watt, as Laura already said. I am 24 years old, and I am from Pennsylvania, where we have rolling hills and cold winter days. I became quite ill at age 14. It was very sudden. I had had some health issues kind of my whole life. I was diagnosed with childhood apraxia of speech at a very young age and went through speech therapy till age 10. So that was 8 years. And then had a couple kind of relatively normal years of just being a homeschooled kid and being very involved in activities. But when I was 14, I developed very sudden mast cell activation syndrome, which is an illness where your body reacts to things that it should not react to that are benign. And so my body started
Benign.
reacting, yes. My
Wow.
body started reacting to very, very small scents of like a chemical, it's like a shampoo, or it would react to like all kinds of foods. And I would have very severe reactions. It was anaphylactics, only I never went into shock. And so I actually had to get an EpiPen from my primary care provider, but I saw an allergist and all my tests were negative for allergy testing, which was very invalidating because it was very obvious that I was reacting severely. And unfortunately, that doctor did not have all the training and kind of just wrote it off as anxiety. And so
Yeah.
I I got passed on to other doctors. Eventually, on our own kind of figured out that I felt better avoiding high histamine foods. And so I
Wow.
had a couple, maybe like a normal month or so of pretty normal functioning. But then I got a UTI, and after the UTI, my health really went downhill. I became mostly homebound and bedridden, and new symptoms were coming up every single week, like hair loss and joint pain and constant migraine and just all sorts of things. And so at that point, we weren't really sure what was going on. I was
Sorry,
already,
how old were you at this point?
yeah, I was 14. So this all
Wow.
happened very quickly within a couple months.
Wow.
Um,
So, freshman in high school, fresh out the gate, so excited.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so I was working with an integrative doctor already, and he thought I probably had Lyme disease. And
Oh.
so I was tested for that, and he interpreted the results as positive. Different doctors look at results a little bit differently. The treatment was not working for me. I was getting worse. And so he,
Mhm.
after several months, referred me on to another specialist who did some more testing and found that I had some co-infections of Lyme disease. And so I went through treatment for that and still mostly just got worse. Some things would get a little bit better, but mostly just continued to get worse. And so this all started in 2015. By 2018, I was using a wheelchair to go to medical appointments, which were the only place I left home for. Um,
Wow.
my mom
So
had to
you
walk.
were completely bedbound at this point or not bedridden yet?
I was mostly bedridden from the start of this illness,
Wow.
only I never lost my ability to walk to the bathroom.
Okay, okay. Wow.
But I was mostly in bed. Every little thing I did made my symptoms a lot worse because I had chronic fatigue. And
Oh,
so any little thing, like even brushing my teeth, I would feel worse from.
wow. Yep.
And
I know.
so,
Wow.
yeah. And so by 2018, I was in a very dangerous place. I was very underweight,
Oh,
very low BMI,
wow.
and a lot of things that doctors would tell you to do were not an option for me because of the severe mast cell activation syndromes, like a lot of different formulas and stuff that you might take. And so I was really stuck, and I had mostly exhausted treatment for mast cell activation syndrome. All the, like, common treatments are not really cutting it. Some of them would help for a little bit, and then they would not work anymore. And so I went on chemotherapy for the mast cell activation syndrome. It's something they do in very severe cases.
Oh,
Unfortunately, that backfired, and I got worse on that, and I had, like, bleeding internally, and my skin just was flaking off everywhere, and I became even more weak. And so we had to stop that, and then for several months, I was kind of in a state of limbo of, like, you don't know what to do, and anything you do makes her worse, and so, just trying to find, like, peace in that, and so I was stuck in that place for a while. And then I started working with a doctor who figured out some hormonal issues that I was having and got me started on some treatments to help with that. And I saw some improvement with the hormonal treatment and could kind of sit up in bed a little bit more, like very, very mild things, but to me it felt like a win. And he started treating me for another Lyme disease co-infection, and I saw some more progress with that. But I plateaued again. And
wait,
that
quick question. So did they formally diagnose you with Lyme disease or not?
they did not. So
Okay.
there's 2 ways to interpret Lyme disease. There's like a CDC positive test, and then there's doctors who say, "Well, if you have these couple bands, you have Lyme." And so the doctors determined was that I had other infections that caused cross reactivity on the bands that I had.
Okay. So what happened after the chemo failed and, at this point was your BMI still just awful? You were losing weight?
Yeah, I was having diarrhea about 12 times a day,
Oh
um,
my
and, like,
gosh.
very, very nauseous.
Yeah.
Um But like I said, like a lot of the treatments you would give somebody for, like, trying to gain more weight were not an option for me because I was so reactive to pretty much everything. I had maybe, like, 12 things I could eat. Um,
Okay.
yeah, and so I was not absorbing food. I did not feel like eating, but I forced myself to eat, and I would eat large amounts even still
Yeah.
lose weight.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got in with another doctor who specialized in hormones, and I had a turning point with him finally because he was able to help me with my hormones and some things like the diarrhea really started to improve. I made progress with him. I got to the point where once a month I could leave my home for something small, like maybe go to a park or something.
Was
But
this 4 years into the illness?
this was in 2019, so I guess that was 4 years into the illness, right?
So did you attend high school? Like, how did you or did you
Yeah, so yeah, I was homeschooled, but my illness was so severe that, formal education was basically put on hold, and so I
Oh,
graduated high
wow.
school at age 23.
Wow. Oh, okay. Wow. And you're how old now?
I'm 24,
Wow. Okay.
24 and a
So
half. This is all fairly recent.
got it. Got it. Okay. Oh, you are such an inspiration. I mean, you're now, up and go. Anyway, why don't you tell us the rest of the story? So what happened at that turnaround?
Yeah. So, I got to the point with some treatments with him, including some infection-based treatment to where I could eat more foods and, leave the house on a very small outing, like, once a month. But
Yeah.
I still had chronic fatigue syndrome, and so I would crash from anything that I did still.
Oh, yeah.
And he was recommending some other treatments for me that I didn't feel comfortable with and that had really backfired in the past. And
Oh,
I was praying about what to do, and then I got COVID. and
Oh,
really
God.
backslid again. And so a lot of
Oh,
things that had improved over the past couple of years, over a couple weeks were mostly gone.
yep. Oh my
And
gosh.
so I I had heard about limbic system retraining and retraining your brain and kind of wasn't sure how I felt about that. I didn't really understand it very well, and so it didn't really fit into the, mindset I've been told about my illness. Been told that you need to do X and X, but
R
I was basically out of options at that point and just decided, like, why not explore it? Maybe it's crazy, but let's just see.
Yeah.
And so I went through a couple programs and they were very science-based and really explained why the brain is so involved in different illnesses and how it could help. And so I got over that mindset hurdle and really committed to working to calm my nervous system into a state of restoration and healing and to rewire my brain out of patterns
Yep.
that it had adopted out of the years of trauma. And
Yeah.
I had a massive turnaround with that.
Wow. So is that what, the Lord used to deliver you basically?
Yes. Yeah.
And this was 3 years ago or
So I started brain retraining in 2023. So it was more like 2 years ago.
okay, I mean, that is huge progress for in
Yeah,
2 years to I mean, because 'cause I've heard that it can take a long time.
yeah. And then I made a lot of progress with that. I actually had very rapid progress compared to what most people see. I did
Wow.
really commit to the program
Yeah.
very intensely because I was home all the time anyways. It's like I might as well just spend all my time working to retrain my thoughts and retrain how my brain body responds to things. So I went really head in into it. Um,
Wow.
but I got very fast progress by God's grace. And I know that's not the story for everybody, and I always tell people, "Don't feel like you're doing something wrong because you're not getting progress the same way I got it." Different
Yeah.
bodies respond different ways. I'm not trying to put shame on you for not
Yeah,
healing
yeah.
the way I have healed. But anyways, with that, I was able to graduate high school. I took a bunch of online self-paced courses for college credit and, kind of like did dual enrollment sort of thing. But, in order to graduate high school, I kind of plowed through a bunch of courses very quickly, uh,
Wow.
after seeing progress. I took college level courses
Oh,
and was
wow.
thinking about, transferring them on, but ultimately I felt like God was directing me in a different path. Uh,
Right.
and so I now have my own business as a virtual assistant and work for a lot of different interesting people. Um, and then just in the past couple of months, I've been seeing a functional neurological chiropractor, and that has brought another level of healing to me.
Oh my gosh, Lauren, first, I just want to say your story is so inspirational and reminds me so much of mine. Hey, except I'm still in the bedridden phase.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that I went through all the same, not to bring it to me, but just I have a deep understanding with you because I was strictly bedridden for 3 years. I couldn't even go to the bathroom, but I had many of those same symptoms, like the chemical sensitivities and feeling like, "Oh my gosh, there's a sound and now my brain is pounding," or just like someone turns on the laundry and your brain is going crazy. You can't eat anything, losing weight. I mean, all of it almost brings tears to my eyes because I feel like a sister in Christ here that's gone through very similar struggles. And the fact that, look at you now, it's just such a resilient story and just the joy that you radiate is so beautiful. Like the way you tell your story is almost inspiring because you're here standing, you've seen the deliverance of the Lord and you're thriving. I mean, I do want to ask. So I can't imagine experiencing trauma at such a young age. Like when I first got sick, I was 30 years old, but you were 14, And so I wanted to ask, how did it make you feel that you got so sick so young in terms of your identity? Like, did it create any insecurities about your worth or did it make you cling more to the Lord, sort of faster than the rest of us? Because I feel like so many of us Christians grow into adulthood with these idols in terms of where our identity comes from. So I'm wondering if God almost spared you from that in a redeeming way because your struggles started earlier.
I think in some sense. So I remember saying to a family member is like, I'm kind of grateful Like, if I had to get sick, it kinda makes sense I got sick when I did because I'm not, like, an adult, I'm not married, I don't have my own family, I'm not set in a career path. I also sometimes would say I wish I could get sick when I was in my 70s or 80s when a
Yep.
lot of my a lot of my life was already in the past, but I try to remain positive and look at it in a positive way. It's like, "Okay, if God needs to shape me in some way through suffering, like, this is the time, might as well do it as a teenager when it's your launch pad for shaping your life." And so I try to
Oh,
view it very positively because it's not gonna help to view it other ways.
yep.
I I did struggle with identity. I I would say that I sometimes took on too much identity in my illness, and
Oh, have I been there? Yep.
I even remember starting to see a tiny little bit of progress, like, very tiny, most people would not think much of it, but I was like, "Oh my goodness, like, where's my identity going now? Like, am I not gonna be the sick girl? Like, what am I?"
Yeah.
Because a lot of people knew about me, I was on, like, a lot of prayer lists, and, like, everybody kinda knew me as this girl who's very sick.
Right.
So it's like people, I think, struggle to see me beyond that sometimes, and I struggle to see myself beyond that.
Yeah.
So I struggle with identity in that way. I also struggled with identity in a sense that I was a very active
Aw.
13-year-old and, like, 12-year-old, and
Yeah.
so I loved to make bread. My family would grind our own flour. I loved to take care of our chicken.
Oh.
I loved to be very active in homeschool co-ops and stuff, and so I, like, love to serve other people. Like, I had a neighbor who has since passed away, but when his wife died, I would go walking with him every day, and, like, I really helped him out
Oh.
with the depression state. And so I really struggled with now being the one who needed a lot of help
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and really struggle with my worth in all of that.
did you
And
feel like the Lord met you in that struggle? Just comforting you or changing or you know what I'm saying, kinda speaking into that issue?
I feel like it was a very slow speaking.
Yeah.
It took several years until the point where a lot of my abilities were taken away, and so,
Yeah.
like you, Laura, I was unable to tolerate light and sound very
Oh,
well, and so,
yeah.
like, my parents had to stop running the vacuum cleaner and, like, they would use a broom
Mine
instead of
too.
a vacuum, or they would whisper when they talked to me,
Yeah.
or
Oh my
they
gosh.
had my window with cardboard over it because the light was so overstimulating.
Yeah.
Um But I did become, like, deathly ill a few times through all of this, and I just remember the one time seeing a quote online, and I was just, like, Googling, trying to, like, find some comfort, and it was, "As long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose," and so it's like,
Aw.
"Okay, I'm still alive.
That's bringing me tears, yeah.
Somehow there's a purpose in all of this."
Oh, that's so I mean, your faith is so I mean, I'm almost crying because, like, I went through so many of the same it's like and when you were telling your story saying, "Oh, we tried this drug and it made me worse, and then we did this thing and it made me worse," like, you gotta read my book, Lauren, 'cause I mean, it's just my story was one very much of praying to the Lord and then the door would close, and not only close, the treatment would make me worse. If you've ever felt like life's challenges are burning a little too hot and asking the Lord why, I wrote something just for you. My number one best-selling Christian memoir, Singing Through Fire, is about finding Christ's surprising joys in the middle of life's most severe storms. As someone who's lost my health, career, and husband, I have a lot to say about how God walks us through great grief. This book is for those who have questioned God's will or struggled with bitterness, anger, or 1,000 unanswered questions, yet who still dared to believe that Christ is right there in the flames with us. It's filled with honest theological wrestling, tons of comedy, and many biblical reasons why God allows suffering. Some will definitely surprise you. If you're walking through loss today, this book will give you powerful hope and faith to keep trusting and make you laugh and ugly cry at the same time. You can grab Singing Through Fire on retailers like Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, or just copy paste the link in the description below. Some tragedies don't tie up in a redemptive bow on this side of heaven, but in Christ, redemption is always awaiting us in eternity. So let's keep singing through the fire together. And so then I was like, Lord, what are you doing in that? How did you experience that struggle? I mean, I'm guessing your family was just praying constantly. How did you deal? Did you experience any bitterness or confusion at the Lord? Like, Lord, why do you keep closing doors? Or did you just have faith that in the right timing, if it was his will, he would bring the right solution?
think I really struggled to believe the door was closed. I had doctors who were very much of the mindset that if we just killed more infection because I was diagnosed with tick-borne infections, I would get better.
Yeah.
Um, but doctors will tell you that when you're killing a tick-borne infection, you have a reaction called the Herxheimer reaction, and that you naturally are going to feel worse because there's an increased immune response.
Yeah.
And so I was I bought into that mindset, and it was like, "Okay, I'm feeling worse, so I'm actually getting better, and in time, I will see the progress of this."
Mm.
And so it took a long time for me to realize, you know what? There's science behind what those doctors are saying, but something else is going on with me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was kind of in denial for a long time of what was happening, and
No,
finally, like
it's your faith, really. I mean, I remember fighting with doctors. They'd be like, "You're gonna die in 6 months if you don't move," and I'm like, "I cannot move." You would I mean, I would tell them, like, I mean, as a witness, sort of, they probably thought I was a loony, but I was like, "No, the Lord is gonna heal me," and whatever. I mean, you probably exhibited great faith with so many of those doctors saying, "No, the door is never closed. My Lord will sustain me," as the Lord was sort of growing you.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think I was super confident of, like, my healing, but I I wanted to be positive for other people. Like, I had an
Yeah.
illness that was hard to understand to begin with, and
Right.
you get a lot of, like, medical advice that maybe you don't want, and it's actually, like, very stressful, and people are telling you, "Oh, you should do this, or you should do that." Friends are
Oh,
just like, "You know what? This treatment's gonna work." Knows out he knows what he's doing. And, like, I'm not trying to downplay my doctors, they were very smart. They went through a lot of training, um, but they I was a little bit misled, to be honest, at times.
no, absolutely. I mean, I know that feeling so much. I want to ask, did you experience any bitterness or jealousy that other kids, other teens your age, ages 14 to 18 were going to high school, going to the dances, in music camp, enjoying their high school years? Did you have a struggle with God in that sense of, Lord, why am I, sort of the Job type questions of, why are you leaving me on a bed, Lord, when I'm just 15 years old? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think yes and no. So, I come from a very, reformed background and, like, very much
Mm.
like everything that happens is God's will for you.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
and so I leaned very heavily into that, and that helped me, I think. Um,
Yeah.
but I also with my nervous system, like, you have fight or flight, you also have shutdown.
Oh,
I
yeah.
fell down into shutdown, like, very quickly, and so, like, in fight or flight, you will experience the anger, you'll experience the frustration,
Yeah.
but your body can only sustain fight or flight for so long before it just shuts down, and fight or flight is too much energy for it to expend. And so I struggle with a lot more sadness and grief and
Yeah.
depression than with, like, anger about what I couldn't do or frustration. So I really did not
Mm.
have jealousy. I would, like, look at friends who are graduating high school at age 18 and kinda cry because it's like, "Why can't that
Mm.
be me? I want that too."
Yeah.
But I wasn't upset that they were getting what a lot of people get, and I didn't, like, feel resentment towards them. I didn't really feel anger, just more like a sadness of, like, "God, why aren't you answering my prayer?"
I mean, that's such a beautiful spirit. I mean, I feel like if I had gotten sick in high school, I would have been so entitled and so angry. I mean, I hope not, but I mean, it's just the way you handled it is just, and I see it in your countenance today, like just your reverence for the Lord and his plans and just the purpose and the pain. Like, it sounds trite, but me too, after 8 years of this, I've realized that that really is true. Like, just God's sovereignty covering us. There is a purpose for every millisecond of your pain. I
Mhm.
want to ask, what changed about your faith and your view of God, when you were first hit with this? Like, I'm guessing, you were healthy as a horse the first 13 years, and then all of a sudden there's this illness in your life. Did you cling to those? It sounds like you clung to those reformed views, but did anything shift about, like, did you have sort of a prosperity gospel esque view of God and then it got shattered? If God loves me, he will heal me immediately, or can you
Yeah.
speak into that?
So, I think I joined the church I was in at the time at age 12. It's like I went through confirmation class. I wouldn't say that I understood Reformed theology very well. I kind of was driven to read more about theology as a result of my illness. I would say I had more like a surface level understanding of faith. And so I had memorized a lot of scripture though. I used to
Wow.
compete in the Bible Bee, and so in the Bible Bee, you have to learn all these verses, and you'll be asked by a judge to recite one, and, like, you might have memorized 100, but you don't know what one you're gonna ask to be quoted, and so I memorized a lot of scripture, and I really leaned heavily into that, um,
Wow.
through being sick, because a lot of times I couldn't read my Bible. I was just, like,
Oh,
had a
yeah.
really bad head it wasn't impossible, but it would make my symptoms a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Um, it's like you have a migraine, you have brain fog.
Oh,
You are really tired. You're like, I felt flu-like most days. It's like your eyes hurt,
me too.
all
Yeah.
all these things. So it's a real gift from the Lord that I had memorized so much scripture and could lean into that.
Wow.
Um, but I would say I had a very firm foundation, even though I was only 14, but
Yeah.
it hadn't really been put to the test yet. And so
Yeah.
I had to wrestle a lot with questions.
Oh, that's so natural. I mean, first of all, can I just say that you are literally a Bible Bee champion? I mean, seriously, who do you know? Who do I know that's memorized like hundreds of verses? I mean, that is just amazing that God equipped you in advance knowing what valley you were going to enter. Like that really encourages us, I think that. And I, before my suffering, I had read, a couple books on suffering and I didn't know what was around the corner, but I feel like God maybe was preparing me, but um I wanna ask, in what ways did you feel like God was silent in your valley, and where did he feel close?
Mm. Well, I mean, keep in mind this is a long story. Um,
Yeah.
I had 8 years of really intense suffering, and
Yes.
I still have a chronic illness to this day, but it's just a lot more controlled and
Yeah.
not impact me nearly as much. Uh,
Right.
but just more like I have to pace myself and just have less energy than a lot of 20 somethings. And so a lot of people probably would not realize that I even am sick. Um,
Right.
but anyways, so yeah, keep in mind it's an 8-year span, and so I think I definitely had times where I did not sense God's presence, and that could last months, and then I would have times where I would sense His presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I what was your question again, Laura? Would you mind repeating?
Like, where did you feel like God was silent? Was it like when he wasn't answering the prayers? Would you ever feel like, "Lord, why are you silent? Why aren't you answering us?"
Yeah, I would feel that. I eventually came to the point though, it's like, maybe I'm just praying the wrong thing.
Oh, praying
Um,
the wrong thing?
yeah. So, like, I would pray very specific prayers for, like, healing and not have them answered. And then I remember one day, like, realizing, like, well, maybe I should be praying for other things and God will answer those prayers. And so, like, I started
Oh.
praying more for things like joy and endurance and strength. And
Oh,
so, come through in that way.
yeah.
Uh, but
Wow.
I wouldn't say that, like, I felt a spiritual high during all those years. I think that
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, like, you must be having, like, learning so much about God and, like, feel so close to him." And I'm not saying there weren't moments like that,
Yeah.
but a lot of it was just, like, crying and being like, "Where are you, Lord, in all this? Like, what are you doing?" Uh,
Yeah.
I did have very severe light and sound sensitivity, as I told you. Um, but the one time I was able to listen to some very quiet solo piano music, I'm not exactly sure why my brain was able to handle that, but it was.
Yeah.
So I was listening to solo piano music, low volume, and there was this artist I really liked. His name is David Neville, and he had a track called Psalm 77. And at that point, I had mostly avoided the Psalms of Lament in my Bible.
Oh.
Psalm 77 is the Psalm of Lament.
Oh.
Um, and I looked it up, and it was just, the psalmist, like, saying all these things that were going wrong, and then recounting all the things the Lord had done in the past, and I was like, "Okay, I need to remember how God has cared for me in the past, and,
Wow.
like, maybe God's footprints are unseen right now, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean He's not there." So, like, literally in that psalm, the psalmist says, like, "Your footprints were unseen when we crossed the Red Sea, but you were
Wow.
there." And so I was like, "Okay, God is doing something, and I just have to trust that He is here because look at all the ways He showed up in my life in the past."
That's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like that's something that I've tried to cling to also. It's like this remembering back, hearkening back to what the Lord has done. That's a theme throughout scripture, I think even in other parts. Um and I think that speaks into, like, when you didn't feel his presence, I guess later God kinda gave you that wisdom that, "Hey, even though you didn't feel me, I have always been there." Does
Mhm.
that
Yeah, and
resonate?
I always believed that he was there. It just wasn't
Yeah.
like a strong sense, like a strong feeling.
Yeah, like some mysterious, like, I
Yeah.
feel God, like, it's not like that. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe sometimes we have a moment of spiritual intensity where you just feel the Lord's peace wash over you, like, I mean, I think that's rare, but,
Mhm.
people have different experiences, but I'm kinda with you on that. I wanna ask, like, were there specific ways because in my experience, because I'm a lawyer, I kept a journal all 8 years of my suffering to date where I write down every time the Holy Spirit talks to me or encourages me or comforts me in some ways, and I know the Lord speaks to people in different ways, whether through the word or a devotional or providential coincidences. Did you Can you describe some of the ways in which the Holy Spirit sustained you, like, at specific really traumatic moments or just encouragement, like, sort of the big "Oh, thank you, Lord. You might not be healing me, but you just spoke to me," or something like that. Did you have any moments like that?
Yeah. So, I was blessed with people who would send me cards,
Yeah.
and so people from my church would send me cards. I was also I still am a member of Samaritan Ministries, which is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. So my family does
Oh.
not have traditional health insurance. Um,
Oh.
but with Samaritan, it works where, like, you have a need and you submit your need, which is your medical bill, and then it's distributed, and different Christians are assigned to send you X number of dollars based on their plan. And they are supposed to write a card as well and tell you that they're praying for you and send their check. And so I
Oh.
I really did not have many visitors during the time I was sick for various reasons, including that it was hard
Yeah.
because of all the stimulation. Um, but anyways, I would keep a bag by my bed of all the cards I'd ever received. And so I had
No.
2 very full gift bags full of cards after a couple of years in because I had a lot of medical expenses. And so I was getting a lot of cards with checks to cover my bills. And so I would lay in bed and, like, I would whenever I felt really, really sad, I would just start reading cards that I got. And,
Oh.
like, I literally read some cards so many times that I, like, memorized the verses that were in them, like, the message somebody wrote.
Oh. Ah. So you feel like God used the church to kind of minister to you, right? Like, remember that verse which says we are to comfort one another in our sufferings? I
Mhm.
think it sounds like God ministered to you by using his people to shine light.
Yeah. And even
Wow.
just other things like having pets, having 2 for a while, we had 2 dogs, and they would come in my room and just, like, want to be with me even when it was dark and quiet and
Mm. So that was like a tangible gift from God in your suffering,
yes.
you know? Like something fluffy you can kinda, express your sorrows and kinda, find some joy.
Mhm.
What did your suffering teach you about God's character? Any surprising things that you didn't know before? I mean, I
Mm.
know you were just a kid before you were sick, but
Uh,
kids have surprising spiritual insight, man.
uh, I I don't know if I learned anything new about his character, but my understanding of his character was deepened.
Okay, how so?
So I did give you examples just now of ways I felt God caring for me, but sometimes that wasn't, like, enough for me to,
Yeah.
like, really cling to. Um,
Yeah.
and so I really leaned into Romans 8 about God's love not being able to be separated from us.
Oh, I
And
love that verse too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just got to the point where, like, I would clench my teeth because I was in so much physical pain and, like, it
Yeah.
was everything was so hard, and I would just imagine Christ on the cross and be like,
Wow.
"G like, you went through that, and then you went through hell, and, like, you loved me, and, like, that's all that's gonna get me through is believing that's true."
Yeah.
And so I just, like, really had that picture in my mind and just cling to that, and
Yeah.
so it sounds, like, counterintuitive because there's so much that was going wrong in my life,
Yeah.
but I grasped his love for me in a way that I hadn't really grasped before.
Wow, because you identified with his suffering? Is that a good way to put it?
I guess, yeah. It's like, "You loved me so much, you went through all this pain, and, like, at least I have access to God," but, like, on the cross, Jesus did
Yeah.
not have access to the Father.
Oh my gosh. Right. Why, Lord, have you forsaken me? Yeah. I mean, what you're saying reminds me of this verse where Paul says, like, we are, oh, what's the verse? The one where it's like we share in Christ's sufferings,
We might also share
and
glory.
that kind of the principle that it leads to intimacy with Christ,
Mhm.
because we understand a bit more intimately because we have a personal cross, right? Like you're feeling the cross yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it, Laura.
What kept you going the days when you wanted to quit? Like, what the days like, was there a specific Bible verse that you really clung to or that was your SOS, like your emergency button? Like, the days when it was so bad, like, do you remember what your lifelines were?
Well, people always talk about quitting, but it's like, what does quitting look like? Like, I really didn't have, like, any choice. It's not like you're running a marathon, you can just sit down on the concrete and say, "I'm done."
Right.
So I always feel like that when people ask that question, it's like, well, I really didn't have any choice, like, you can I think probably the way I phrase it is, like, what you do have a choice in is your attitude, and so, like, you can be, like, really upset or really sad, or you can try to remain hopeful, and so that is where you have a choice no matter what happens to you. You can control your attitude, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I love the work of Ann Voskamp. Um, I kept a gratitude journal every day. A lot of times
Oh.
it was just an Evernote file on my phone. I would write down 3 things that
So
brought
you literally kept a gratitude like, even in your pain, when you're getting no answers, when your health is getting worse, you were still thankful to the Lord.
yes.
Wow. You inspire me. I mean, there were moments in my journey where many moments where I could not feel an ounce of thankfulness. I was just begging, save me, you know?
Mhm.
That's so impressive. So you would just bring to mind things that the Lord was doing, like, I still have a family. The Lord loves me, that sort of thing?
Right, or even, like, I would write down, like, I was thankful for rice or something, or
Oh,
I was
yeah.
thankful to have
Wow.
a pillow, or
Aw,
I was thankful to have internet connection, or I was thankful for a text somebody sent me, or,
wow.
like, those sorts of things.
I mean, that I just see so much humility and Christ in you. And I'm guessing you were, a really wonderfully humble person even before this, because like the fact that you were able to have your whole framework shifted and yet to still follow what Thessalonians, I think it's First Thessalonians 5:8, where it says, give thanks in all circumstances. And it's like, really, when my brain is in so much pain and the doctors are making me worse, and yet I mean, it's so inspiring. You
And
still
I
clung
certainly
to.
did not do that perfectly, Laura. Certainly had
Oh, yeah, no,
moments
I
where
know. I'm not, I don't wanna put you on a
yes.
pedestal, but you're just inspiring me because it's like, there were many moments where I definitely did not rise up to the call, and where it's, like, so tempting to give into the despair and to not trust God, and yet you sort of had this, steady view of his sovereignty, and that's why we could give thankfulness because he is doing something. It's that sense, right, that kept you going.
Yeah.
I wanna ask, so were there any other ways that God surprised you with joy in your valley? Because that's one of the main themes of my memoir, and also the reason I started this podcast is this idea that we can sing through the fire. We can actually that the Lord calls us to have joy in our fires, sorrowful but rejoicing, give thanks in all circumstances. So you were thankful, but did the Lord shower you with these surprising joys other than your dogs and the cards? I mean, any other examples of feeling his joy in any way or gifts of joy?
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like my nervous system very quickly went into, like, a state of shutdown, and so, like, I would be grateful, but maybe not necessarily, like, strongly feel emotions.
Yeah.
Um, but, I mean, there were ups and downs through it all. I I I love to joke around, um, and so the one time I printed out a "Bang your head here" sign and put it on my wall. It was like a
Oh,
I think you probably seen, like, in college dormitories and stuff. I remember my one buddy roommate had that, up on his wall at one point. It's like, "Bang your head here, like, repeat 3 times until you're unconscious." Like, I hung that up on my wall the one day, and then I had a couple of friends who would, like, come to me with all their problems and, like, want my advice on things. And
While you're in your deep valley, they're coming to you with for their I mean, not to judge other people, but for their problems?
yeah,
Oh,
um, and
because you have wisdom, that's why.
so I hung up a psychiatric help sign on my wall from Lucy from Peanuts, and I would tell people I was gonna bill them 5 cents for, like, each message they sent me with questions about their issue. Um, but I try to keep a little bit of sense of humor when I could in all of that.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving it. I mean, I that was I love sarcasm. I'm a comedian. I also love that. And we have a similar sense of humor. And my dad and I, that's the only way we got through my strictly bedridden years. Like he would crack a joke, I would crack a joke. So I totally resonate with that. And I think you know, there's this wasn't it in the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus said, "Blessed are those who weep, for you will laugh." And it's like that upside down kingdom principle, right? And it's like, well, if we're going to laugh in heaven, and if God is going to turn all our sorrows into joy somehow, which is a biblical principle, which I didn't know before my suffering, but I learned, through it. But if that's the case, why can't we have joy now? And that's precisely what you were doing. You were kind of laughing at the enemy, saying, oh, you think you're going to take my joy? I'm going to slap these jokes on the wall and show everyone that I'm still resilient. I'm still persevering. I love it. I just love it, Lauren. I want to ask, how did your struggle impact your family, like to that point? Because I know for me, it was all hands on deck because we didn't have a choice. I was basically an invalid, like I couldn't move. And so for you, I'm wondering, how did your parents I mean, I'm assuming your mother was a caregiver of sorts. Tell me a little bit about and how did it affect their faith?
Well, I think it's hard for me to speak on how it affected my family's faith journey, directly
That's
with
true.
their own story to tell.
Yeah.
But I was bedbound, and so my mom was my primary caregiver. My dad too was a caregiver, but it was mostly my mom. My mom worked full time from home, and she still does to this day. And so
No.
she could come in and like give me my food and check on me and like, give me medicines. And when I was like really, really bad, like she would bathe me in bed. And she would take me to my doctor's appointments that were local and my blood work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there were complications that made it very difficult, like, to get anyone to come into our home despite me being so sick, and so, like, I had to get blood work done, like, at a local facility. And so, like, she would take me in my wheelchair and help me get my blood work done. I saw a lot of specialists that were out of state or hours away, and so
Yeah.
my dad would travel with us, he would drive us to those appointments. Um,
Wow.
my brothers were both mostly at college during these years, and so,
Okay.
there's a bit of an age gap between my brothers. My oldest brother is 6 years older than me, and my second oldest brother is 4 years older than me. And so, when I was 14 and getting very sick, that's the year he moved out for college, and so they would come home for school breaks, and they were around my illness during that time, but a lot of times they were not in the house when I was going through all that, but still, I'm sure they were I know they were being deeply impacted because we are all very close, and they're seeing their sister really struggle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad you have a tight knit family, though, that has walked with you through it. Like, really, that is a gift from the Lord. Like, it's like we can't, and not that you are, but we can't take advantage of that. Like, we're so lucky that the Lord, He equips us to go through the suffering. Like, sometimes I was like, Lord, like, why do we have to go through the suffering? Like, I wish you didn't give me the resources I need to be able to be sustained and you would just take it away. But instead, he almost gives you what you need to walk through that valley,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I also just wanna say I think it's very difficult to be the person who's sick, but I also wanna honor that it's very hard to have a family member who's very sick.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Being a caregiver is very hard, just like all the physical needs, but also there's the emotional toll. Even if you're not the person providing the daily care, like watching your family member really struggle is really hard. Um And I remember at times being grateful that I was being spared from that, like, I didn't have to watch Like, I was
Yeah.
sometimes I actually felt gratitude that I was the one sick and didn't have to be the one, like, who felt helpless, like, "What
Aw.
can we do to help her?" Uh,
Yeah.
I felt that in the beginning. After a couple of years, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I wish I could just, like, get a break and somebody else could, like, sub in for a day and be sick instead." But I
Yeah.
definitely had that feeling in the beginning. But
Man, Lauren, I your journey again, it's like so similar to mine. Like my mom was my full-time caregiver. And she would bathe me on the bed also. Just so much trauma. Like and just, once I started trying to sit up again, the wheelchair and all that stuff. Like I feel like we're soul sisters in terms of understanding what that feels like and the gratefulness that I almost feel like I definitely don't thank my mom enough, like, for what she has gone through for me, and, like, I'm so grateful that you also had such a and have such a dedicated mother and father who have walked with you. I wanna ask, now that you're an adult, um, how do you navigate adulthood while still having some of that trauma, or has the Lord sort of healed you emotionally completely, or is it I know you still struggle with the chronic illness, which is no small feat. You're still in the valley. I mean, but it's better. And
Mhm.
so how do you navigate any residual trauma from those years?
Yeah. I tend to be pretty open with people about my health issues. Not with everybody, but, like, anybody I work with professionally. Um,
Yeah.
as a virtual assistant, all my clients know that I have health issues. I'm very open about it. And in fact, I basically only work for people in the ministry space. Maybe they're not nonprofits, but I basically only work for people in this space because it's just, like, a strong connection, that we have of, like,
Yeah.
okay, like, she understands what I'm trying to do, like, she has some lived experience in what my business is functioning for.
Yeah.
And so I'm very open with people, and maybe I don't tell them like, I don't tell them every little up and down that I have during a week, but I'm just like, "I need a little bit more time on that project because of X happening." And people have been very kind about that. Um, but I think, like, other things that have made it a little bit more challenging is, like, I don't drive just yet.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I'm working with a functional neurological chiropractor, and he has found imbalances in how my brain communicates, which explains why, even though I got my license, it's very hard for me to drive. And once I transitioned into work, I had to take a break from it because it was just so mentally exhausting. So we have answers for why that's happening now, and hope that I will be able to drive sometime next year. Like, I have to explain to people sometimes, like, "You know what? I can't drive, so, like, can I talk to you about that on a video call or something?" So I think that's been a little bit of a challenge, even though, like, my parents are willing to drive me places as needed. Like, I don't look sick. For most of my illness, I really did not look sick. I mean, I was very underweight and would have a puffy face, some steroids at times. A lot of it was inflammation in my body that you couldn't see. Uh,
Right.
and so, a lot of ways, I function pretty normally, and so people might assume I can do more than I can, but I also
Oh,
still have, like, boundaries and limits,
yeah.
to be able to function so well. I think that has
Right.
a little bit. But yeah, I when somebody wants to understand my story, I am open about it. I don't hide what I went through, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
If it's the right person.
Yeah.
I would say that I don't have a lot of, like, I don't think I have, like, a lot of, emotional trauma right now from it all. I feel like I've healed from that a lot.
Good.
Like, I was never formally diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, but, like, I
Yeah.
would drive past a medical building, and I would, like, feel myself getting more tense,
Oh.
or I would, like, have all these bad memories that would, like, flash into my head of things that happened there. I'm not sure if it was PTSD, maybe it was, maybe, like, it was a mild form. Um, but I have healed a lot from all of that.
I'm so glad to hear that. And one thing I struggled with, which sounds like you were sort of implying, but it's like where people tell you, "Oh, you look great, you're all healed," and you're like, "Well, actually, I'm still, struggling." And obviously, you're better compared to where you were, but that's something that I've struggled with is people not understanding invisible chronic illnesses and
Yeah, and I think too, both you and me, Laura, were very ambitious people despite limitation. Like, you
y
inspire me because 'cause you're launching this podcast with constant vertigo, and you're in bed so much, and, like, here I am, like, I'm not in bed, I'm mostly functioning, as long as I stay within limits. But, like, you and I are both very ambitious, and we're trying to do as much as we can with our life. And some people might think that you're totally better and be like, "Oh my goodness, like, so amazing, Laura, you're doing all this." But meanwhile, you still have a deep struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and those are the struggle thank you for identifying that because those are the struggles only the Lord sees,
yeah,
and right? And yet he's so faithful, like, it really feels like you have this best friend who kinda gets it, it's like even if you don't feel his presence, you know his presence, like, can you resonate with that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I wanna ask, how do you feel like the Lord redeemed your suffering?
Mm. So, I really like Samantha Ebert's music. Ebert or
Oh, I
Ebert?
love her. Yeah, yeah,
I think it's Ebert. I actually spoke at a conference that she also spoke at last month, which is pretty cool. But I really love her song "Flowers" and how she talks about being in bed for several months and crying, but trusting that those tears are watering flowers that would grow up in a valley and that she would see one day. And she tells the story, like, that she got a lot of flowers when she was sick and just kinda was inspired by that. But I have seen that in my own life, like, you have all these difficulties and all these things that seem to go wrong, and I had 8 very intense years of illness, and
yeah,
now I've had 2 years of pretty good health, or like 2 and a half at this point. Um, and I have seen, like, opportunities that I've had that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been chronically ill, and to such a severe extent, like getting to volunteer with different ministries or getting to talk to somebody who's struggling and understanding them in a way that somebody else doesn't understand them. Um, and, like, a lot of my paid work even has been the fruits of illness. Yeah.
that's beautiful. I mean, he really Jesus really is the redeemer. Like, we might not see the whole story on this side, but I've seen, like you, that he does give us glimpses of redemption, like, on this side, so that it encourages us to trust him for the stories and maybe tragedies where we don't really know what the full implications are. Like it's he gives us that encouragement, in terms of, no, I am doing something. I am watering seeds. I am growing flowers in the valley. I love that song too, by the way. So, and it's beautiful to see where God has led you. I mean, you even have a blog. Can you tell us a little bit about your blog? Do you share like insights on theology and suffering, or is it more chronic illness issues?
Yeah. So I got into writing as a result of my illness, which is probably another fruit of my illness. Um,
See, yeah.
yeah, people wanted to know how I was doing, and so a couple months after I got sick, my mom started a CaringBridge website for me. And so on CaringBridge, she would post updates about how I was doing, and when I was 16, I wanted to write an update, and I wrote an update, and, like, people were like, "Oh, like, Lauren, it's, like, so good to hear from you," and so it was hard for me to write. I would write on my phone, take me several hours to write something. And I liked that my phone really knew my writing style because, like, I would write the word one word and, like, pop up the next word
Oh.
that I wanted. You know how, like, phone screens.
Yeah, yeah, the auto text or whatever, autocomplete.
Yeah. So, like, that really helped me because it was hard for me to think, like, how do you spell a word? Because I had brain fog and stuff, and so I would write these updates. I would spend hours on them trying to make them sound good. And people told me that I had a real gift for writing, and I have been writing, like I said, kinda since age 16 off and on. I remember, like, a full year where I did not write anything because, again, I just got too sick. But when I was 20, I started a Weebly blog and was just writing every week about something related to faith and chronic illness or my life. But I kinda got to a place where I felt like it wasn't helpful to be writing about my chronic illness so much, and I kinda needed a little bit of a break from that.
Yeah,
I felt like I was reinforcing the struggle, and I decided
right.
I needed some time away from it to reevaluate my beliefs and just really think and learn before I started writing again. Um, and so I took some time off, and I also moved platforms. So I now on Substack, and the focus of my writing now is about trauma and recovering from long-term health issues
Yeah.
and kind of reforging your path after massive things have happened in your life and like things about mindset. I do not write very often. when I first started my Substack, I wrote a little bit more frequently, but I am in a season now where God has given me a lot of opportunities to help other people get their stories out, and I really feel led to help those other ministries at this time, and also just kinda, like, quietly reflecting and thinking and growing, and when I feel like I have time for both and I feel like God's calling me again to write more,
Yeah.
I
I
will
think
write.
there is a book in you, Lauren. Give it some time. Let's see where the arc goes. I mean, like you said, there's a purpose. There is a purpose, even in your ongoing chronic illness, still. Like the Lord is using you so mightily in these different ministries.
Yeah. So I do write on Substack, but it's not regular writing. I think the last time I published something was in October. So like every couple months, sometimes a little more frequent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Do you see your ministry as one of giving people hope in their suffering?
I would say so, yeah, giving people hope. Also just bring awareness to trauma and how it impacts people. And really, a big reason I still write and have not given up on writing is so many bloggers stop writing when they have significant healing. And I always
Oh,
found that a little sad. Like, okay,
yes.
you told me about everything that went wrong, and now you tell me that you're doing better, but you're not showing me how that story is unfolding for you. And
Yes.
so I'm not writing extremely frequently, but I am still writing. And I'm trying to show people like you can go through all this horrible stuff and you can still have a beautiful life.
Oh my gosh, it's so my story, Lauren. I feel like, again, we're soul sisters. It's so clear God connected us because it's like my whole message that the Lord has given me is having joy in the fire, not just after the deliverance. Like the church, we're always, oh, let's wait for the healing. Let's wait for the miracle. Let's wait for well, what if God keeps you in the fire the way both of us still are?
Yes.
And those stories, are we going to be able to still cling and start a podcast and start a blog and help ministries the way you're doing? I mean, the Lord is sustaining us, and it's so encouraging to see. We have like a minute left, and I want to ask this last question. What would you say to someone, perhaps someone young like you were, who's in a place of deep despair, maybe without being able to see their way out of their own fire right now? Is there any piece of advice or anything about clinging to the Lord that you know now that you wish someone had told you 8 years ago or 10 years ago, I guess?
I would say think about your thinking. Think about what are you actively telling yourself? What messages are you putting in your mind? Be very aware of that. That will shape how you view your suffering. There's a
Yeah.
quote from a guy who endured Nazi Germany. I forget his name right now, but he basically said suffering ceases to be suffering when we assign meaning to it. Oh, it's Viktor Frankl. And I'm not sure if I 100% agree with his statement. I think like you still have suffering even when you assign meaning to it, but it becomes a whole lot less intense when you find purpose in it, when you sing through the fire in it, when you still find reasons to be thankful, when you don't let
Yeah.
your suffering be the only thing that's true about you.
Absolutely, and that's such a biblical principle. This is why Paul and Silas are singing in prison when they're shackled, and yet they're still worshiping the Lord, right? Like, this is this idea that because there's purpose, because the Lord is sovereign and has a purpose for every ounce of our pain, we can sing through the fire.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Lauren, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your story, even though I've walked through so many similar things, even separate from that, your story is so inspiring to me because of your Christ-like sweet character, which to me, I feel like you probably had even before you were sick, but just seeing how the Lord has transformed you even more so into just this light that I see on your face. And your testimony is so powerful. It shows us that we can persevere in the suffering. So, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, until next time, remember, if you're suffering today, you're not forgotten. This fire is not the end of your story.
Thank you so much for having me on, Laura. God bless.
God bless. Be sure to hit subscribe because I upload content every week to help other sufferers. To God be the glory.